Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin, the podcast that brings you the latest news and analysis from around the world. We have a packed show for you, with updates on the situation in the Middle East, as well as developments in South Asia. First up, let's take a look at the escalating tensions between Iran and its neighbors. Over the weekend, Iranian strikes hit Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, prompting widespread condemnation from the international community. The attacks came after Israel launched a military operation against Iran, which has been blamed for recent attacks on Israeli targets. In response to the developments, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned Israel's attack on Iran while also expressing solidarity with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. However, Pakistan's immediate challenge is to manage public anger at home, after protests outside the U.S. consulate in Karachi turned violent, resulting in several deaths. Meanwhile, in India, the government has taken a more nuanced approach, avoiding direct criticism of Israel or the U.S. This comes as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi strengthens ties with Israel, with the two countries on the verge of signing new defense deals. However, some observers argue that India's neutral stance on Iran may undercut its efforts to position itself as a champion of the global South. In other news, Bangladesh has seen a major shakeup in its government with the abrupt ousting of its central bank governor, Ahsan Mansoor. The move has sparked controversy and raised fears about the country's commitment to reforming its corrupt banking sector. We'll continue to follow these developments and bring you updates as more information becomes available. For now, it's clear that the situation in the Middle East and South Asia remains complex and volatile, with far-reaching implications for global politics and security. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're diving into the latest developments in the Middle East, where tensions are escalating by the hour. Reports are emerging that the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh has been hit by 2 drones, resulting in a limited fire and some material damage. This incident comes on the heels of ongoing Iranian missile and drone strikes on Gulf states hosting U.S. bases, following U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran. According to the Saudi Defense Ministry, the drone attack caused minor damage and no injuries have been reported. The embassy has issued a shelter-in-place notice for U.S. citizens in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dhahran, advising them to avoid the embassy until further notice. U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that retaliation is forthcoming, stating that the details will be revealed soon. This situation is rapidly unfolding, with multiple countries involved and the potential for further escalation. It's essential to note that the conflict has resulted in a significant spike in energy prices, as Iranian officials have threatened to fire on any ship attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping route for the world's oil supply. The U.S. Treasury Secretary and Energy Secretary are expected to announce measures to mitigate the impact of rising energy prices. As the situation continues to evolve, we'll keep you updated with the latest developments. For now, it's clear that the region is on high alert, and the international community is watching closely. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, let's take a look at the latest developments in European politics. The Ukrainian government has been pushing for a clear route into the European Union, with President Volodymyr Zelensky hoping to secure a 2027 date to join the EU as part of a settlement to end Russia's war. However, EU governments, including France and Germany, have expressed skepticism about reforming the accession process to shorten Ukraine's path to membership. According to diplomats, there are concerns that Ukraine and other countries may not press on with necessary reforms, such as cracking down on corruption, if they are already granted EU membership. The current membership process is long and complex, involving years of detailed negotiations and legal reforms to meet EU democratic and economic standards. The European Commission has proposed a revamp of the process, known as reverse enlargement, which would allow countries to join the EU after meeting some minimum requirements, but with limited access to EU funds and decision-making until they meet all the membership benchmarks. However, this proposal has not gained much traction among EU governments, with many citing concerns about corruption and the need for Ukraine to make more progress on reforms. Despite these challenges, the European Commission is expected to continue pushing for ways to get Ukraine into the EU in the next few years, arguing that membership would strengthen the bloc militarily amid fears of potential Russian aggression. A model of gradual integration, whereby aspiring members take part in more and more EU programs and meetings before joining the club, may be a more feasible option. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay engaged.